Hello, Titans fans, and welcome back to the Two Tone Crew. It's been a long time, episode 138, but my name is John Boy, and I am back tonight alongside my buddy Jamal, the most loved man on TitansReport.com.
I'm back, and you're welcome.
Also, Scotty is joining us once again. Scotty, for years, I feel like you had that most loved man on Titans Report.
I think that's true. I had them both.
Yeah, most loved and most hated, right? So we are back. The people have asked for it. We've been trying to get together all off season actually to do a couple more episodes. We had 2 after the draft and then never ended up doing our final thoughts. So of course a lot's happened since then. I don't know about you guys, but maybe Jamal, it's just having kids, but I feel like this off season's kind of flown by. Normally, I feel like there's such that long drag where you wait all off season, training camp. But this year, I mean, here we are. We're right on the verge of the first preseason game. So about a month away from the start of the season. To me, it's went by pretty quick.
Oh, yeah. Usually I feel like it's just dragging between the draft and real news. And yeah, like you said, having kids. I mean, actually, today is my eldest's 4th birthday. So
oh, nice.
We had a bit of a whirlwind day, but I feel like between him really starting to become a person with a personality and thoughts, and then our daughter is 16 months old now. So just between that stuff and work, man, I am busy. And then obviously I added video games back to my life like an idiot with the Nintendo Switch release. So between all that, man, my Titans obsession has been a little bit more normal person obsession as opposed to just reading everything, listening to Nashville radio constantly from Milwaukee where I live, and just obsessing completely. It's been much more normal levels of obsession.
Fair warning to the listeners. If the SNES Classic goes live, pre-orders go live during this episode, Jamal will totally bail on us. So
oh yeah,
be prepared for that.
Yeah, but the good news is the podcast will be more listenable. Much less Titans hate when I bail to go do some SNES Classic stuff. But man, I am pissed at Walmart. By the way, I'm still pissed off.
We both got in on that
pissed
one.
Off. I was so excited. I was like, yes, I got my Classic. And then they canceled it. And they didn't even give me anything. Like, give me a $10 gift certificate or something.
Scotty, do you have any idea what we're talking about?
I don't have a clue.
That's probably most of the listeners of this podcast.
No, most people listening to this podcast are probably millennials.
Leave a comment on the Titans Report thread and let us know. I think we do have quite a few gamers over on Titans Report, so most people probably know. But let's talk some Titans football because so much time has passed. We do have quite a bit to talk about. Pretty big news bomb dropped just yesterday regarding the Titans here on the week of the first preseason game. We got news kind of unrelated to the actual football. But let's start with football, guys, because as I said, it's been a while. We don't have to rehash everything that's happened since we last talked. It would probably take several hours to do that. But Titans have made, several more offseason moves. We've had training camp. There have been some practices that fans have been able to attend, a lot of scrimmaging back and forth. So we've seen the newcomers like Eric Decker out there. We've seen the rookies, Corey Davis, Dory Jackson, kind of have an idea of where these guys are at least in terms of the way they look on a practice field. And there's a lot to get excited about. I mean, national media jumping on the bandwagon of the Titans, it seems, everywhere you look. And I got to be honest, I mean, going into the year, I'm feeling pretty confident about the team too, because they've rebuilt, the right way. I think we've all talked about how important the quarterback was. We feel like we've got the quarterback now. And before we went live, Scotty and I were just talking, the biggest development of the offseason, fingers crossed, may be that Marcus Mariota seems to have no adverse effects whatsoever from the injury. I mean, the Titans were running trick plays with him today in practice, and he's going to play in the first preseason game, which
the Mike
months ago
Mularkey
we weren't
special.
sure. Yeah.
The fact that they're letting him play in the first preseason game, I think is an indication that it's not just that it's okay. It's that like there is no concern whatsoever. It's done. It's gone. I mean, apart from mentioning that we don't need to mention it anymore, we don't even need to mention it.
Hopefully not. Yeah. So, of course, that was always going to be the biggest story of the offseason, despite the rookies, despite the newcomers, is how he progressed. And so, as of right now, we're feeling pretty confident about that. And by all accounts, he's looked good in practice, even aside from the injury. Seems to have all his accuracy. And I noticed today, I don't know if you guys caught this, but for the folks who like to nitpick, which we've done some of that here on this podcast and over on Titans Report, I think one of the biggest kind of critiques, if you can even say big, that people would always bring up of Mariota is he's still got a little to clean up with his footwork. That was one of the critiques. And I don't know if you guys saw the interview with him today, but he said that was one of his big focus areas for this offseason was actually working on his footwork. So hopefully we'll get to see the improvement there firsthand in this preseason game against the Jets.
Hopefully the level of improvement mirrors the level of improvement on his deep ball last year. And then basically he'll be the prototypical all-time best quarterback in the world of all time forever.
So, Scotty, I mean, what's your kind of just a temperature reading of the team right now? I mean, are you feeling I know we always, especially, we like to be the voice of reason. So when people get too high, we try not to let them get too high. And if the team, we have had times in the past when the team has been winning and folks have called us out saying that, you know, we're too hard on the team. But I mean, I'm kind of buying what most of the media is selling. I think this team has all the pieces.
I'm actually nervous because it looks so good.
But it actually looks good is what you'd say, though.
Yes. I mean, can it be this good? It's hard to believe after all the years, but yeah, I think it can be this good potentially. Still a lot of moving parts and some people are going to have to prove some things, but as a whole, I mean, they could win 11 or 12 games from what we see right now.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, it's more of what we saw last year that was promising, which is like it's a plan and the acquisitions and everything just all fits together. You aren't just out there acquiring random talent. You're acquiring talent and personalities that fit. But I mean, like even things like last year where we got DeMarco Murray, this year, you know, we pick up late in the process a guy like Eric Walden. He's certainly no DeMarco Murray, but he's got a lot of sacks in the past. You know, he can be a productive player for us. And of course, Eric Decker, I think, is going to be huge. You talked about, I think you mentioned a little bit ago, who would be a surprise guy. I don't think he'll surprise people, but the level of good and the level of production and improvement he's going to be, that's going to be huge.
Yeah, if he's fully recovered from I think he had some injury problems last year. It kept him out most of the year. But this is a guy whose talent fits almost perfectly with what Mariota does best. And it's why the second he was released, there were a lot of us calling for this and saying, you know, this would be a great move. He's totally a John Robinson, Mike Mularkey type of player in terms of locker room. But what he can do on the field, yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for what he's going to bring to the table. And to be fair, I mean, it seems that Taywan Taylor, the rookie, they're both kind of playing that slot position. And with Davis being injured, we'll talk a little bit about that here in a bit. But with Davis being injured, Taywan Taylor's gotten quite a few more reps. He's been performing well too. So we've got, I mean, I think even at this stage, we can already say massive upgrade to the slot position going from last year with Kendall Wright. And yeah, I think I saw a tweet when the Jets had yet another. They had another injury. This time it was a wide receiver. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Quincy. I think he was their number one wide receiver.
Nunwa or something like that. Yeah, he was their number one guy. Yeah. And he was a guy who is kind of popping out at times last year, and I think they were expecting him to take something of a step this year. So it's actually, I mean, as much as you can say a team that's was going to be terrible can actually suffer a huge loss. I mean, they're just going to be a level of terrible-er. So I think the impact, I mean, they don't have anyone to replace him with. They've got like rookies at this point.
So the tweet I saw said John Robinson should trade Eric Decker to the Jets for a first-round pick after that injury happened, because it would just be a total John Robinson move to come out with a first-round pick. But all joking aside, I think Decker's going to be, provided he can stay healthy. And I think it was 538 that had an article about kind of the biggest offseason moves for each team, and something like that. And they had him as our biggest move. And I agree. I think that's going to make a big time difference if he can stay healthy. But what do you guys think about the rookies? So, well, I mentioned Taywan Taylor a bit there.
Well, I mean, it sounded like Corey Davis was really coming on before he got hurt. But back to the Decker stuff, the thing is, even with Davis hurt, it seemed like the wide receiver core is still so much better, even without Davis on the field right now. So, and I think Jackson, he sounds about like what we expected, a little raw, good return man. Sounds like Jayon Brown is everything they hoped he'd be. The rookie class seems pretty good overall, I would say.
Jayon Brown is the guy who I think has been getting a surprising amount of praise this camp so far. I'm really intrigued to see how much he plays this year and what his contributions will be, because it sounds like he's actually making a name for himself right now.
I think he's playing. I think he's playing from the start in the nickel.
I think you did. I don't even think we talked about this. One of the other things that's happened since the last time we had a podcast was Tretola and Tajay Sharp's whole thing, but Tretola got himself cut for a second incident. Tajay Sharp is sort of a fascinating thing. Like, they don't give any updates on, obviously not his legal status, but like all they say is he didn't practice. Like Corey Davis, they'll say, every day an update on his hamstring. Tajay Sharp is just, he didn't practice. And you look at their
physically unable to perform since the start.
Yeah, look at their depth chart unofficial, and he is the last guy listed at wide receiver. Now, you might make an argument that that's because he's injured, and so it's just easy to remove him from the cycle right there. But man, I seriously, at this point, I doubt his roster spot. The best case scenario is not counting against the roster, and they keep him that way.
The only thing I would say is the fact that Robinson hasn't cut him yet is pretty promising, because Robinson cut Tretola and got rid of BGB so fast that if he didn't at least think he would, which, I mean, he still might not make the team. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he didn't make the team. But the fact that he's still on the roster, I think, says something about them thinking he has some kind of value.
Would you say, though, that being injured makes it less likely they'll cut you until you're healthy? Like, it seems like I've noticed that trend at times in NFL rooms where, like, a guy finally gets healthy and boom, he's cut.
Yeah, I think I guess they could do an injury settlement, but why do it now? And plus, what if they suffered 2 or 3 more injuries, keep him around, that kind of deal. But
and if he gets rid of all the legal troubles, maybe he's still worth it. I mean, I think that he can play in the NFL at one level or another. So I don't think he's a completely worthless commodity. So you're right about that.
Yeah,
but injuries or something, he could still produce.
They did spend the 5th pick in the draft. They spent a 3rd round pick, and they signed Eric Decker. I mean, that says a lot without even talking about where he's at on the depth chart.
Right. No, I agree. We talked about this in the last podcast, and there was some feedback on TitansReport.com where people thought it was a little bit harsh on him, and it's only gotten worse for him since. So.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with him is that he showed enough talent, especially for a 5th round pick, that you would expect them to keep him around. However, going back to the whole rumor of why he got involved in that fight in the first place was because somebody was taunting him about the fact that they drafted Davis. Now, clearly being buried on the depth chart like he is, I mean, even if everybody always says unofficial depth charts don't mean much, and they really don't, but it's clear Corey Davis is in front of him, Eric Decker's in front of him, Rashard Matthews is in front of him, Taywan Taylor's in front of him. So how does he respond to that adversity? If he really has the type of personality that was apparently very upset about that, then that doesn't sound like a J-Rob guy to me. But if he's able to handle this and use it as, fuel to improve, because I mean, we're sitting here kind of raving about the rookies. If we being honest here, this is a guy we were raving about last offseason for his work ethic, how he stayed after practice. And it was so strange because that first game against the Vikings, everything we saw came true. It was like, oh man, this guy is the real deal. 5th round pick. Can't believe we lucked out. And then I think he had 1 or 2 more, decent games and then kind of just fell off the map as the year went on. But I mean, the injury does kind of cloud things a bit. It's like, because he hasn't done anything in terms of practice since they have to report all these things. He's been physically unable to perform the entire time. And they, like you said, Jamal, nobody's really asking how far along is he? What exactly is the issue here? So who knows what'll happen there.
So here's a question I have for you guys. Is there any position, I know you kind of have to think about it, but is there any position on the Titans roster that you think is not better than last year?
The blocking tight end position.
Yep. That has to be the only one, yeah.
That's the only one that I can think of. And it was an interesting thing. I was reading Mike Mularkey's transcript from his presser today, and he was asked about the tight ends. And it just it's something that after it happened, it was very much out of sight, out of mind. But he didn't say the first person that he named was not the person that we actually lost this year. It was Craig Stevens.
Scotty and I were talking about that before we started recording.
And you just wonder how much of an impact that really had last year, losing him. And like at such a random time of the year, too.
That's what I told John Boy. This guy must be like the best blocking tight end of all time. They will not quit talking about him. But I made a post. Robinson and Mularkey both talked a lot about how much it changed their offseason plans. And I just thought it was odd that Craig Stevens wreaked so much havoc to the offensive plan.
Yeah. But how much more could they have run? That's what I want to know.
One other big offseason development that we never got a chance to talk about on the podcast was the Blake Bedingfield interview, which contained all sorts of interesting information about recent Titans history and far in the past Titans history. If you missed that interview, I know sometimes people kind of check out in the offseason. If you missed that bit of news, go back and find that interview. Pretty sure it was the Midday 180. And that was just a fascinating interview that, like I said, contained all sorts of little tidbits that, diehard fans, if you're listening to this podcast, I can guarantee you would find it quite interesting, some of the things he had to say. And I mean, that ties in with what we're talking about here with these rookies and the fact that he actually said that the Titans had Jamal Adams. I think it was Jamal Adams. Of course, Myles Garrett was the top player on their board, and then Leonard Fournette were kind of their 3 elite guys. And remember, Jamal Adams was available when the Titans picked, and I wish they would have pressed him a little bit more on that. But I mean, I guess you would assume that, J-Rob kind of read the board and had a hunch that those wide receivers were going to start going, and that's why he was able to take Corey Davis there instead. But a lot of interesting stuff in that interview. We don't have time to rehash all of it, but if you missed that offseason development, definitely go back and check that out. I don't know if you guys had any highlight from it you wanted to mention quickly or not. I know it's been a while.
Not really. I mean, it was good. It was good, like you said, but I actually liked the stuff he talked about concerning the current roster because he talked about how they're going to use Kevin Byard as a free safety. He talked about how much they like LaShawn Sims and, the old stuff I didn't care that much about, but he gave us an inside look on what they're planning to do with the current roster and scheme.
Yeah, I thought that part was great too.
Picking up off of that regarding Sims, I think it's pretty clear that he's going to be the number 2 cornerback this year.
Yes.
And then it made me kind of think like Adoree Jackson, if does just kind of some spot work, but he is electric returning the ball. Is he like a defensive version of the dude they took in for the Panthers a while ago? He's with New Orleans now. What's his name? When they drafted Ted Ginn. Yeah, he's the one when they drafted him, the coach was like, "You're gonna love seeing him return kicks," and people are like, "Wait, what? What? First round?
You took him that early?" Yeah,
but I think
he was drafted by the Dolphins.
Oh, he's drafted. You're right.
Yeah, he was originally drafted by Miami.
Number 9. He was the 9th pick, and the Titans supposedly had serious interest in drafting him too.
Well, and the thing is, he's turned into not a terrible wide receiver, certainly not a top performer, but not terrible. And that's what I was thinking, if Adoree Jackson has a career trajectory where he's just electric returning kicks, does some spot duty, and then after a couple of years becomes the starting cornerback, I don't think I'll have a problem with that, especially if it means that somebody like Sims has stepped up, and it's not like Adoree is so bad he can't get on the field, but it's somebody else stepping up. I think I'll be okay with that.
He's going to play 65 or 70% of the snaps anyway. Because
you think so?
Oh, the 3 cornerbacks are on the field 65, 70% of the time anyway.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess it would depend on if he can take that number 3 spot. But I guess I feel like a lot of what I've seen so far in terms of reporting is he's really raw and he's very athletic. So he poses some dangers there. But, for being a guy who is somewhat raw in college, then getting to the pros is going to be that much more raw.
I think Logan Ryan's definitely playing in the slot. And since Bryce McCain's kind of mostly an inside guy too, I think that pretty much leaves probably Sims and Jack. But the thing is, on the outside, they can help him more.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
He won't be out there getting exposed probably, but I would be surprised if he didn't at least play in the nickel.
I'm glad you brought that up, Jamal. 2 things on that. LaShawn Sims is my candidate for breakout player, the player that not enough Titans fans are talking about right now, because, again, this is one of those off-season stories. I know a lot of people miss them sometimes, but Malarkey apparently he did this last offseason too. I don't really remember hearing about it, but he does this off-season kind of competition where he gives out awards for certain categories. Did you see this, Jamal?
I did not.
Yeah, so he gives out awards for certain categories. I think it's I don't know if it's by weight or just by size in general, but for the big guy, Jarrell Casey won. You'd expect that. And then kind of for the middle guy, Delaney Walker won, another one you would expect. Well, then for the small guys, I think he called it just like skill positions. Well, LaShawn Sims won the offseason award, which I think when you combine that with the fact of how he came on towards the end of the year, and I mean, first impressions, if you think about the first impression, he was not good in that first game. But after that, I mean, he really played well. And this whole offseason, that was another thing in the Blake Bedingfield interview. It was clear that they feel LaShawn Sims can be a starter in this league. We know he had the big play against Kansas City. It wouldn't shock me at all if by the end of the year, he's the number 1 cornerback. And I know we've got Logan Ryan, but he's my prediction. And then the other thing I was going to say, because like you mentioned, that directly impacts Adoree. I went back and watched several of Adoree's games, like every snap, because he was I talked about this on the draft podcast. This draft offseason, more than any other, I really dove into the film on a lot of these guys. Adoree Jackson's one I didn't watch hardly any on at all. I don't know why. I just never really considered the Titans taking him. Well, after we did, I went back, watched several of his games, and I think, I'll be honest, I don't love the pick. Even now, I'm kind of concerned about if he'll ever be a great cornerback. Now, he's shown that he can make big plays, and he's already been doing that in practice. So if he can make some of those big plays every now and then you can tolerate what's likely going to be a little bit of a slower learning curve for him because he had a crazy career at USC. The guy did everything. So he was never really able to devote himself to one position. So I have a question for you guys. Let's say that he never pans out to be a good corner. Let's say he's Devin Hester 2.0. So let's say he becomes a phenomenal returner, but never a great corner. Do you guys think the pick would be validated?
Devin Hester, sign me up. I mean, that's
pretty bad on special teams last year. So
Devin Hester is like, I mean, the best
top
ever.
3 all time. Not,
Yeah.
not the top return man ever.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on how long he can produce as a top level returner. Because if you get like 2 or 3 years of top level returner, I don't think that works out. And it seems like top level returners, you'll have guys. It's kind of like running back where guys will be okay for a lot of their career, and they'll have a couple of years where they're just the guy. Devin Hester, one of the reasons he's Devin Hester is he was the guy for like 7 years. I mean, it was like a long time. So I think it would make it so the pick was not a mistake, right? But it wouldn't necessarily be a pick I was super satisfied with looking back. It's just not what you are hoping to get, but he would be a big time contributor in that case. So it wouldn't be a mistake. It's just not what I would want necessarily.
And to be fair, before people start jumping on me, I think he's more talented than Hester at corner by far.
Oh yeah, and the thing is
showing that.
My thoughts on it is, it's more of just how raw he is. So there's a lot to learn.
Right.
It certainly seems like he's had the ability. He's shown the ability to learn a game pretty quick. Like last year when he devoted his time, his game improved dramatically from what I understand. I didn't watch his film like you did.
It definitely did. Yeah.
It took a big step forward. And so I think when you can show that level of, I think just football IQ in terms of learning and translating it into action, then I think he's fine. It's just, it might take a little while to ramp up towards a guy who is truly dependable on the field. And before I forget, by the way, I was listening to an interview with Logan Ryan, and he, I can't remember exactly what it was, but he described LaShawn Sims as consistent, but the way in which he did it, it was as a major compliment. It was not like, he's consistent. He's always average, which I somebody is consistent. It would be kind of like a backhanded compliment. For him, I think he was very much complimenting LaShawn Sims. So it was interesting to listen to him discuss LaShawn in that way.
Sims also got major praise for the job he did on DeAndre Hopkins in the finale. Bedingfield mentioned that, and I believe Malarkey has mentioned that game too, how well he covered in that finale against Hopkins.
Interesting.
Yeah. If I'm looking at what we were talking about, things are kind of looking too good. I mean, aside from injuries can always happen. That's the biggest threat to any team, really. Injuries could slow down anyone. Aside from that, if I'm just kind of looking through this roster and what could prevent us from doing what we believe we're capable of, I still point to the defense and worry, did they do enough? I think we're clearly better in our secondary, but it's depending on almost 4 completely new guys. I mean, Byard's going to be playing somewhat of a different role this year. You got Logan Ryan, you got Adoree Jackson, LaShawn Sims in his second year. Then you got the newcomer in Cyprian. Cersei's going to be probably playing a little bit of both safety to kind of back up each guy. But you got a lot of new moving parts there, so it remains to be seen how they'll come together. And I think if they come together, I think that's my biggest concern is how does the secondary come together?
I will be interested to see how much they play safeties. We were talking about Adoree Jackson being on the field a lot just because he'll be the nickel. I could see them playing Cyprian, Byard, and Cersei a decent bit this year, which would
good point.
Free up a little bit of the reliance on potentially a cornerback. Maybe you take another linebacker off the field. I don't know. But I could see them playing those guys a bit more than most teams play 3 safeties.
That's possible, but I think since they got Jayon Brown, I think they did that last year more because they didn't have any coverage linebackers. And I think they were using the safeties more in that role. So I'm gonna guess that it's more Cyprian and Byard. Now they'll play 3 safeties sometimes, but I don't think it'll be anything like last year. And as far as the defense goes, we talked a lot about Mariota's injury. Kevin Dodd is who I'm hoping is the breakout player. He's also apparently completely over the injury, it sounds like.
Right.
He's one of those that's like expect nothing, and if we get something, it'll be incredible.
I think it's more than that now, I think.
Yeah, at this point, I've gotten myself to the point where I'd be disappointed if his injury resurfaced or he had another injury and couldn't demonstrate some ability there, because outside linebacker is a place where just and I think the addition of Eric Walden could help some, but I mean, Kevin Dodd has to be a third guy. They can play a good bit of snaps, get Morgan, get Arakpo some rest, and take them off the field at times, and really have somebody else who is dependable. I mean, we talked about it a number of times last year. Kevin Dodd, when he did play early in the season, he flashed.
Yeah. I mean, this is a guy who is pretty much close to a first-round pick. I mean, he was the second pick in the second round, a guy that many thought could go at the end of the first round. So the talent is clearly there. I mean, and you mentioned Walden. It feels like he's getting rave reviews since they signed him, which I've heard a lot of people, Malarkey sounds almost shocked that they were able to get him so late. And you remember they brought him in for a visit months ago. So it's probably a situation where he shopped around and didn't really like what he saw. So he came back, and now he's with the Titans, but they seem to be thrilled with that. So there's some depth there. We talk about Arakpo and Morgan and their injury history. They needed some depth behind those guys. So it's nice to hopefully think that we have it.
Now they have a second wave of like Carl Klug, Dodd, Austin Johnson, Walden. Now they have some guys that could come in and not as big a drop. Last year, if they'd have suffered injuries at those positions, they'd have been screwed. This year, they can keep the rotation much for the defense. I hate to say it because, like I said, I'm scared, but man, they improved the depths of the pass rush, the coverage, especially in the middle of the field with Cyprian, Logan Ryan, Jayon Brown. The free safety was, Byard. It looks like Sam so much better at cornerback. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
On paper, it looks like even if they're not a top 5 to 10 defense, so much better than last year.
The defense is one of those things that, I mean, I keep going back to last year, and there's so much stuff that like you can do a good side and a bad side to things. Like the offense really took a step forward, but then the end of the year they trailed off. Well, but it was against good defenses, except for Jacksonville. But then like the defense carried us in those 2 big wins towards the end of the year. It's like, so are they that defense? Are they a defense that like can carry this team when the offense doesn't produce, and then they added stuff to it, or was that like kind of fluky?
I do have to correct you real fast. I think Jacksonville did have one of the better defenses last year.
They got a lot better.
They could have. I'm just still bitter about that loss.
I think the second half of the season last year, Jacksonville had the 3rd best defense in the league.
Must have had the worst offense.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. But yeah, I see what you're saying. The defense could do what the offense did last year. And
well, yeah, I just wonder, like, so when they played so well for 2 key games towards the end of the year, does that mean they improved over the course of the year and then they were finally good at the end of the year? Or was that just kind of a fluky thing? Like, what is their base level of who they were by the end of the year that we're adding on to?
You're talking about the defense?
Yeah.
I don't think the defense was better at the end of the year.
No?
I think they played – I think Denver's offense, they got lit up by Jacksonville. They got exposed against Jacksonville. And
that game was such a weird game. But I guess I'm just like, I keep focusing on Denver and Kansas City. Like the offense did not carry us to those wins. It was really, we held them in check defensively, and maybe it's just their offenses were the problem.
Yeah, I think the Broncos and the Chiefs, even the Chiefs by design, kind of hold themselves in check. I think the defense was way worse than people thought last year. Like the Browns game, the what's the Bears game. I mean, they were shredded in those games so badly, but the Titans ended up winning those games, so people didn't look at it.
I was just looking back, and as I'm looking back at the scores, it's reminding me of all these. Defense was such an enigma, man. I mean, they hold the Raiders to 17 points. They held the Lions to 15 points. The Texans beat us. They had 27 points, but if you remember, one of those was a punt return. Then we just destroy the Dolphins. That was with the left tackle, I think, all that weird offensive line situation. Then, like you said, Scotty, then the Browns, they nearly let them come back into it. The first Colts loss, we lost to the Colts both times by about. But yeah, I think it was the first game where the Titans came back, got the lead. Then they scored again. Then the Titans offense kept giving them chances, basically. Chargers, we give up 43 points.
Another game where the Luck game in the first one, that could have been Andrew Luck's best game as a pro. That's how bad the defense. That's how bad the defense was. And I do think early in the year, I think LeBeau did kind of a good job. Teams didn't know what to expect exactly, and he blitzed so crazy that he'd never done that before. I think once teams figured it out, they started lighting them up.
Before we get too far away from it, I just want to say in terms of Jacksonville, did you see who they were using at tackle?
I did.
I didn't, but I'm going to guess it was Patasi.
Oh, yeah.
Titans, great.
Not only were they using him, various Jacksonville fans were on Twitter talking about how he was misused on the Titans and how he would prove how good he was. And I replied to one of them. I was like, wait, was he misused on the Titans by playing tackle, or was he misused by moving to guard? And they said he was flashing early in the season at tackle, and then they moved him to guard, and he never did anything again. I was like, good luck, my friend. Good luck.
Oh man,
Jacksonville fans deserve every bit of suck that team has given them.
Yeah, the Titans did misuse him. They did what you're doing right now.
They depended on him. Yes, they misused him
at tackle.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if we have Jacksonville fans listening, but this was a situation where we actually had a scout on an official team video say he is a guard. You need to play him at guard. And then Ken Wisenhunt proceeded to play him at tackle. Start him at right tackle.
He got benched like 3 games in a row, and they kept putting him back out there.
Yep. Fans are just crazy. I mean, the Titans fans who thought he was just going to walk into a starting job at guard then still fascinate me. But by the way, Jags, it cracks me up every time it happens, but every time I use swipe to type on my phone, right? So I don't actually key in the individual letters. Every time I do Jags, my phone corrects it to haha. And every time I laugh out loud.
Oh man. Yeah, I think we're gonna save season predictions for once the preseason is complete. And we've been doing this for so many years. I think we can skip over the whole what are you expecting to see in the preseason? Because I mean, let's be honest.
Hopefully no injuries. Right. Moving on.
Yeah, so the preseason game, if you haven't checked in on it yet, it's 6:30 Central Time at the Jets on Saturday evening, I believe, August 12th. Let me make sure I'm right on that. Sometimes they do Friday. Yeah, Saturday is the game. Then the second preseason game, home against the Panthers, home against the Bears, and then away at the Chiefs to close out the preseason. So before we kind of wrap this up, we got to mention the big news yesterday that, 1/3 of the team is for sale. And
man, it cracks me up. It's like a bad bundle that you have to buy at GameStop. It's like, if you want to buy 1/3 of the Titans, you also have to buy like a nut farm and an energy company. It's the worst package ever, but it's such an elusive package that people are going to buy it.
I'll be honest, it already makes my head hurt, and I'm already tired of the discussion. It's like there's so much. I think you even hinted at this, Jamal. There's so many moving parts here. We've had news reports all over the place. I mean, Paul Kaharski's got an article up about how this is probably going to solve all their issues. Whereas Florio at PFT has an article up saying this is going to be, it's going to make things even worse for the Titans. It's like, I don't even know. I can't waste my energy on it because it's just, there's so much that we just can't possibly know. Does she have voting power of the other family or not? There's so many weird moving parts to this. I mean, I'll just say I think it's unfortunate because it's distracting, from what should be an incredibly positive offseason for the team. And it's going to be, who knows when we'll get more news on this. I mean, these kinds of things can take years. I mean, it may be a year before they even get anyone interested. Who knows? It may be a group. It may be one person.
The funny thing is, both PK and PFT were saying the same thing, but with different spins. They were both saying the NFL will, one way or another, use this to solve the issue. They will not approve a sale and a new owner without solving the issue. But PFT was saying it in like an ominous way, as like they're going to make the Titans sell maybe or something. Whereas Paul Kowarski was saying, oh, they'll just put like a condition in here that whoever buys this has to admit that they have no power, and that's that. Which I think that perspective doesn't quite make sense to me. I don't think it could be that simple, but it's going to be complicated because the NFL is going to get involved. Plus, I mean, rich people want to own a team, right? But who wants to own a team along with all the other stuff that apparently, like when you look at franchise values for the Titans, people were saying about $600 million is what the 1/3 is worth. And then Paul Kuharski said 1/3 of the trust is like KSA, $1+ billion.
Industries.
Yeah.
And so you're paying like $500 million for stuff that's unrelated to the NFL. And so that's a barrier. Plus, you may have to walk into a situation where you admit you have no power, and the other owners have basically said, you're worthless. We control the team. You can buy it if you want, but you are nothing. You are a fractional share.
Still make money off of it, though.
And you still get the prestige. But who wants to not have any power? I mean, you think Peyton Manning's going to buy it and just say, "Yeah, I'll just sit here on the side and never do anything"? No. There's going to be something.
Well, the thing is, though, I think there's a ton of people. The NFL is a money-making corporation. To have a third of an NFL team, you're going to make buku money. Mm-hmm. Whereas, so people that would not want to run the team would still want to. I mean, it's a huge investment. I mean, look at these guys. Jerry Jones bought the Cowboys for like $120 million. It's worth like $4 billion now.
Yeah, but then that's where the whole nut farm and energy company come in, because how much is the nut farm growing in value?
The Bud Adams businesses back in Houston, that's a declining asset. The oil and everything, that stuff's going down. So I think it's probably purposely done where, you want part of this NFL team, you got to take this crap too.
Well, because they own parts of the trust, like she can't sell something that the trust itself owns. And so I don't think she could break it up. And at least that's been my impression. Are you guys under a different impression?
I thought she could sell her third all the way. That's what I thought I read, but I didn't study a lot. But how about this? You couldn't have put in your will a better way for. I mean, that would have solved it all.
Yeah, that seems to be the biggest issue with the whole thing.
Didn't you know this would be an issue? You'd think that they could have given, Susie and Tommy more of the business, and maybe somebody else, the grandson, just so they had a controlling amount of the team to avoid all this.
It's easy to point and laugh at Bud, but you got to think. I mean, there's got to be some lawyers somewhere that totally missed this,
right? Exactly,
when they were writing up this will. I mean, it makes.
I can almost guarantee they didn't miss it. He just said, "Let them try and force us to sell," similar to what the Titans are saying now. Like he was like, "No, this is totally fine. They can't do crap," and the Titans are saying the same thing.
I agree with that. I don't think they could make them. Based on what? It's their team.
I don't know that I agree with that, but I can see Bud saying it. My general impression is that these ownership groups have a lot of control over individual franchises if they want to exert it. But it becomes an expensive court battle. How the NBA forced out an owner just for being a piece of Democrat person being, like they can do what they want when they really want to. You just have to really work hard to make them want to do it.
Aren't there other teams set up the same way though?
Yeah, but I think they've been grandfathered in. They've been that way for a long time, and they didn't do stuff like the NFL approved this. Right. Later, the Titans switched controlling owner, and the NFL was like, "Screw you! No, we don't trust you anymore. You don't get the benefit of the doubt."
And I think it's kind of easier now. I know Jamal, you like to go back and forth with people on Twitter about the whole lock-in fora thing, but I do think we can kind of start to see where both sides of this story were getting out, because I don't know about you, but I fully do believe that Amy does not want to sell. So maybe this whole, and she is Underwood's boss, so she says, you go out there and say, I am not selling. We are not selling. That's what he has to say, right? So I think she's adamant about that. But then I think there was this other 1/3 with Susie and Tommy Smith, who was ousted, who's maybe this whole time been a little uncomfortable, like, we kind of like to get out of this. And so that's very likely where all those rumors from Lock-in Fora and others were coming from about, hey, we'd like to sell. And then, like you said, maybe they're reading the tea leaves and saying, well, if this happens, then this would probably force Amy to sell. And
I think the NFL already isn't happy there. Yeah, if the NFL already isn't happy and 1/3 wants out, this could happen eventually. And so I'll get ahead and project it. Absolutely. I think that's where he was coming from. And he vastly overstated it and got himself into trouble. I mean, I thought it was hilarious. I went back on titansreport.com and was looking for another post, but I found one where he had a shouting match almost on 104.5 last year, where he was saying, I didn't say they were for sale.
I forgot about that.
It's like, wow. So like at this point he could claim credit, except for the fact that he already backtracked so far as to get angry when people suggested he was saying there would be a sale. So like, it's just kind of a mess in reporting. And magnified by the fact that Paul Kuharski is picking a fight a little bit sometimes now that he's trying to promote his own website, which, by the way, paulkuharski.com, right?
Yeah.
Friend of the podcast.
I'm trying to have him back on again at some point. So
yeah, I would be interested in that. And I'm interested to see where his coverage goes. I know he's going to try and mix it up now, and hopefully it's not moving towards a Clay Travis model, but maybe elements of being a little bit more open and a little bit less politically correct. I'd be open for that. I mean,
yeah. As far to kind of just wrap up this whole ownership thing, though, I mean, I don't know that we can really say more than you just have to just keep an eye on it and just keep reading anytime there's an update on this, because there is still so much to this story that we don't know, and unfortunately probably won't know for a while. I do think I think Amy definitely wants to keep the team, and she's going to do everything she can to make sure that she maintains this, the controlling owner.
Susie's got
the word they're putting out.
Susie's got to hate that she has this asset that's worth like $1 billion, and there is a big barrier to selling it.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, that sucks.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's where, like, finally just posting it up, I think she's been like trying to be patient for a year or two, hoping something would happen. And now she's just like, screw it, put it up. And I mean, it's good for her because the Titans are better now, so it's worth more. But also I think this is just like, I'm not waiting anymore. I'm going to try.
I don't know if how the NFL would look on this, or if it's been done quite in a similar way, but I also follow the Grizzlies for basketball, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with their ownership structure, but they have an ownership group. Speaking of Peyton Manning, his wife Ashley Manning is part of that ownership group. I think she owns something like 2.84%, and then there's Justin Timberlake's one of them. There's a lot of local Tennessee area folks who own a portion of the Grizzlies, and then at the top you have Robert Pera, who owns 25.6%. So he's the guy who's running the show, and then there's quite a few others. I'm just looking at the list here. I mean, looks like at least 10 to 15 other names on here of other people who are part of this ownership group. So he pretty much runs the show in terms of, making moves. And I don't really know how that structure works. Like, do they have, do they have board meetings where they meet with him and tell him what they want to do, or is it pretty much just what the Amy situation would have to be like, to where they're like, hey, you run the show and we're just kind of here for our names on the board, so to speak. So who knows? I don't know if how the NFL would feel about something like that, because like you said, most of the owners are one owner. When you look at the rest of the NFL, I think the Giants and the Steelers are really the only other teams that are kind of anywhere close to what the Titans have. But that's all I have to add on the subject for now.
Yeah,
ready for football to begin.
I don't even care until something is really said either way. I don't even care about the ownership stuff.
It's definitely a sidebar. I mean, it's doubtful that anything big happens on it, or that there's a whole, well, I guess you could get rumors, but you're not going to get like statements from the NFL constantly with updates and everything leading up to a sale. It's just not going to happen. So it's going to be, you might get an official statement on, this is what we would want to happen as part of a sale if we're lucky. Otherwise, it's just going to be waiting until somebody buys it. And then during the, hey, it's Bon Jovi, now Peyton Manning, now, Wizard of Oz and Waldo. There's going to be rumors just constantly on it, I'm sure. But otherwise, it's going to be no activity until it's sold.
Yeah, I think the one of the Lock and Fora predictions was, what's the guy with the Browns? Haslam. He's like, don't rule out him swapping teams or something.
Oh yeah, swap. That's what it was.
Yeah. So who knows is gonna throw their hat into the ring on this. It's gonna be interesting to watch for sure, but I'd much rather watch Titans football. So luckily we have that right around the corner.
They'll probably turn into this Super Bowl contender, and some sale will happen, and they'll fire Robinson and everybody.
Trade Mariota.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I have, guys. It's good to be back. Hopefully we'll be back to a regular podcast at this point, with the season right around the corner. No comment from the two co-hosts.
Until we see some games and something to talk about. Really not much to say.
Yep. Well, thank you guys for joining me. As always, Jamal and Scotty, two loyal members of the Two-Tone Crew. We hope to get Josh back on again at some point as well. Might be able to get him on here in the near future, and maybe we'll have some more guests. Like I said, we'd like to get Kaharski back on. But it's been so long since I've done this, man. I'm going to have to pull up the old thread to figure out what all I used to say at this point. I know you can find us on Twitter at Titans Report. I am at Retro Raconteur. Jamal is at Jamalisms. If you ever have questions or anything you want us to cover on the show, best thing to do is to tweet at us for those types of things. If you're not a tweeter or a Twitterer, not sure what the correct phrasing on that is, you can also send us an email to mailbag@twotonecrew.com. That's mailbag@twotonecrew.com. Spell out the two-tone. You can also leave us a voicemail, 615-900-0282. Again, that's 615-900-0282. Of course, the main website is titansreport.com. We are also on Facebook, facebook.com/titansreport. Thank you all for sticking with us. Feel free to leave us a review on iTunes. It's been a while since we've mentioned that, so that helps the podcast get noticed more. If you guys can, even if you don't want to leave words, if you can just give us 5-star rating, that'd be awesome. We're on Stitcher, Android, lots of places. So looking forward to Titans football. We'll talk to you guys again soon.
Hey, John, you forgot to tell them to send us money.
Oh, right.
Aren't we?
We're doing a crowdfunding effort to buy the team, right?
Right. Yes. All we need is $1 billion.
Yeah, I thought 700 million. We might be able to do that, but 1.1 billion, we might as well just.
You know what I was thinking though? I was thinking, if I won like 300 million in the lottery, I wonder if I could throw my name in the hat with like Peyton Manning and others to be part of the ownership group. So now, even more than normal, I want to win the lottery.
Just give them your catalog of Two-Tone Crew episodes and say, this is how dedicated I am.
I'll just say,
podcasted through the Jake Locker years, through the
No, I
Ken
was thinking
Wisenhunt
I would
years.
tell them, I am qualified to be an owner. Look at my Twitter account. I have 3 followers who aren't either porn or spam. So clearly, you should let me in.
Oh man, it's been fun. You guys have a good one. We'll talk to you again soon.